Hello viewers, welcome to my channel. This is your host, Brother Benjamin, and please remember to subscribe to my channel for more videos and also add comments in the comment section. Today I'm privileged to have a guest, Brother Rod Bergen from Canada. He's going to highlight important issues in relation to the message. Brother Rod, I welcome you.
It's good to be with you, Brother Benjamin.
God bless you so much.
He does.
Brother Rod, yes, it's night time, and I don't know what time it is that side.
It is just 20 after 10 in the morning here.
Ah, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. The viewers would like to hear more from you, Brother Rod. How did you believe the message of William Branham, and when did you believe the message?
So I was born in a Christian home. My parents attended a church called Evangelistic Tabernacle in Vancouver. Uh, Most people in the message would recognize the name of the pastor of that church, who was Ern Baxter, who was William Branham's campaign manager for a number of years. Um, Ern Baxter's wife died, and I can tell you the relationship we had is oh man, I was probably in grade 3 or 4, and he got married again after his first wife died, and my parents sang at his wedding, and I actually sang as part of the trio. So we knew Ern Baxter very well, and as a result, my parents were very familiar with William Branham's ministry. And my dad actually was an usher in William Branham's meetings in Saskatoon, I believe, sometime in the 1940s. Um, Additionally, and just to give some background, William Booth Cliburn, who was a friend of William Branham's and actually the individual who told William Branham that he didn't know his Bible very well, was a friend of our family, and I can remember him coming over to our house when I was quite a young child, and I sat on his knee. I remember that because he was a very good storyteller. Um, we started attending a church where my uncle was the pastor, an independent apostolic church, a oneness Pentecostal church. And that's where I met the Biscoe family in about 1967. Ern Baxter returned to Vancouver in 1972, and we started attending his church again. My parents, took me to see Deep Call to the Deep, the film of William Branham when I was a teenager, and my dad, I remember, gave me the book, The Man Sent from God. I had a bad experience with this at Ern Baxter's church with the young people in the church, and I basically left Christianity altogether for about a year and a half. It's a long, long story, but I ended up coming back to the Lord through hearing a tape of William Branham at Ed Biscoe's house, and many people will be familiar with Ed Biscoe. He made the video "I Am a Witness" and is a well-known minister in the message. We started attending. I started attending his church in 1973. I married my wife in 1975, Cindy, and went to university. In 1907, I graduated with a Bachelor of Commerce degree. That was about the time I met Jeff and Lonnie Jenkins, who were going to Cloverdale Bible Way at the time. I um, became a song leader and a trustee the church in probably the fall of 1977. I met a lot of message ministers through the years. Said I knew Brother Lonnie and Jeff Jenkins, Ewald Frank, Billy Paul, Joseph Branham, Donnie Reagan, Barry Coffey, the LaFontaines, Tim Pruitt, basically all of at least in our corner of the message, I met all of these ministers and had a number of them stayed over at our house. Um, I was involved in all of the financial decisions in the church we attended for probably 35 years. I should say at the same time, I had a very successful career. I'm a chartered accountant. Um, I became a senior partner with Coopers and Lybrand, now known as it merged and is now Price Waterhouse Coopers. Uh, I left. I worked there for 17 years. I joined the second largest private company in Canada. And my boss, a fellow who owned the company, was Pentecostal. We had 29,000 employees when I worked there, and um, he is definitely a multi-billionaire. Um, Most people will be familiar with the Believe the Sign website, which my son Jeremy started in, I think, 2007. He wanted the website to be a credible voice for William Branham's ministry and the message. What started me to ask questions about the message really was about sin that happened in the church. I found out, and it's a long story, I won't go into it, but our pastor, had covered up the sexual abuse of a minor. And when it all started to come out, we found out that he'd lied about it. And he lied to me personally several times. And it came out, it was clear. Um, Scripture says, don't take an accusation against an elder without 2 or 3 witnesses. We had the witnesses and we could prove that he had lied. So we confronted him with this. In fact, we asked for his resignation. It looked like there was going to be a big fight that was going to develop. And so the Lord actually spoke to me supernaturally. I went to the pastor with a prophetic word. I don't have a gift of prophecy. This is the one time in my life I had a word of prophecy. I gave it to the pastor and I said, if he made the wrong choice, a certain thing would happen and it would be a sign that he had taken the wrong pathway and he had rejected God. 6 weeks later, what I told him would happen if he rejected God happened. And I remember sitting in church and going, I almost stood up and started screaming, you've rejected God. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And I left church that day and I never went back to that church. Within a month, probably 60% of the church left our church, which was Cloverdale Bible Way, and started a new church. The big problem that I had was that message preachers didn't stand up for the most part. They either backed our pastor or they kept their head down. And I'm talking about all the big name pastors in the message. Either and we told lots of people about it because we're looking for advice. Either they backed the pastor and said, you guys are wrong. We can't believe he did this. Even though we had the evidence and we showed them the evidence and told them about it, they wouldn't pay attention to it, or they would keep their heads down. So I started asking this question. So is the message the thing that's preventing them from standing against sin, or have they somehow perverted the message? So someone gave me a book by Tim Keller, which just blew me away. And I went and bought several others of his books. And one quote in the preface to his book changed my life. And the quote was, a faith without some doubt is like a human body without an immune system.
That's wonderful.
I read it. I read the quote and I read it again and I read it again, this one line, and I read it again. And he basically said that we need to acknowledge and wrestle with our doubts. If I've got a doubt, I need to wrestle with it because it might be protecting me. You could tell me, Rod, I'm from Mars. Well, if I would say, no, I don't think so. What's that? That's doubt. Why am I doubting that? Well, because I got a good reason to doubt that you're from Mars. So when we have doubts, sometimes they're protecting us from something that's actually not true. So Tim Keller says, you have to wrestle with your own doubts. You have to wrestle with your friends' doubts, and your neighbor's doubts. And you should actually take each one of your doubts and look at it. look at it closely and say, is this a good doubt or a bad doubt? Do I have this doubt? So the doubt that I actually had a doubt about the Bible. Can I trust the Bible? We use King James Version only. Is that the best translation? I said, I need something I can trust. I'd had too many experiences with God to say, okay, I don't believe in God. I believed in God. But which version of the Bible could I trust? How do I know what God's word is really saying? So I spent about 9 months, Brother Benjamin, researching the Bible to say, okay, what can I trust? And my understanding of the Bible changed completely. But I ended up saying, you know what? I can trust the Bible. But I started using a number of translations: the NASB, the ESV, the NIV, NET, the NLT. And then once I finished that research. I started, and appreciate my background. I'm a researcher. So I worked with large corporations and I was a tax advisor. I would give these people advice, and on the basis of that advice, they would sometimes go out and spend hundreds of millions of dollars. So when I tell them, here is my opinion, you should do this, if I was wrong, they could sue me. And so I had to know that I was right. And so I started taking that same approach to research and did that with the Bible. Then I said, okay, now let me see if I prove the Bible to be true. Can I prove the message to be true? And so that's what I started looking at.
Interesting.
And understand as well, I was one of the people who first came up with the idea to put the text of the message on a computer. So we actually had a prototype running at Cloverdale Bible Way, our church. I bought a computer, and this is before the IBM PC was even around. So we had this little personal computer. We had the whole message on it, and we were using and developing a search program. And we actually then, another guy that I knew who developed the message search program that that Voice of God has now, we gave him some money so he could develop this program. And I was part of that development process. Anyways, so that message search program gave us a powerful tool. And what we started finding was issues. So, for example, I started looking at the municipal bridge vision. I went onto the internet and I started researching the municipal bridge vision. I couldn't find any record of anyone dying on the bridge. So I thought, that's really strange. So I phoned up Perry Green. I'd known Perry Green. I'd been down to his church. We'd been out for lunch with him. And I said, Brother Perry, I saw something on the internet where you had a slideshow and you pointed to a section of the municipal bridge and you said, this is where the section that fell off and this is where the 16 people died. So he said, yeah, that's correct, Brother Rod. I said, Brother Perry, on what basis did you say that? Because I can't find any historical evidence that there was a problem in the construction of the bridge or that anyone died, that 16 people died. And he said, let me tell you, Brother Rod, the prophet of God stood with me underneath the municipal bridge. We're right at the foot of the bridge. And he pointed up at the section and said, that section of the bridge fell into the river. And that's where those 16 men drowned. I said, oh, that's interesting. So you were there with William Branham and he told you, Brother Branham told you that this is what happened. He said, that's correct. I said, is there any historical evidence for that? And he said in his Texas accent, Brother Rod, the prophet of God wouldn't lie to me. And I said, well, that's not really my question, Brother Perry. I understand that you don't think that William Branham would lie to you, but do you have any evidence historically that these 16 men were killed? He said, you don't understand, Brother Rod. The prophet of God wouldn't lie to me. So, okay. So that I still have my problem. So I phoned up George Smith, William Branham's brother-in-law, or son-in-law rather, who I knew well. They had lived up here for a while, and George was a friend. I considered him a friend. So I phoned up Brother George and I said, Brother George, I've done all this research. I can't find anyone who died on that bridge in its construction. And he said, no, you're right, Brother Rod. No one died. Now, by this time, my wife was really curious. She was actually listening on the phone with me. So I had my phone up to my ear, and my wife had her ear right by the phone so she could hear what Brother George was going to say. And she looked at me like, what? And I said, so no one died? He said, no, the 16 men didn't die. We can't find any evidence. There's no evidence of that, Brother Rod. I said, well, how do you explain it? And he said, well, I can't explain it, but I still believe. And that was the point where I could say, okay, now I got a big problem. I got a huge problem. And we started finding other problems: the brown bear vision, the vision of the African meetings, the 1933 vision. And some of the big problems with these visions, the 1933 Ohio River experience, where we found out that um, that William Branham hadn't been baptizing um, 500 people or 1,000 people, as he said. There was no voice that anybody heard. His vision of the plum and the apple trees, the Marilyn Monroe vision. And then there were other problems with his credibility. Like he said he visited the graves of Muhammad and Buddha and Confucius. And we could prove, when he said it, he hadn't even been to South Africa. He may have been to South Africa. He hadn't been to India. He never visited China, and he hadn't been to Saudi Arabia yet. So he was not telling the truth. Other things, he said that he visited the Vatican and he saw vicarious fillet D on the crown. It doesn't exist. He wasn't telling the truth. William Brown was under the cloud of the Arizona, the cloud in Arizona, and we could prove that he wasn't there. He was in Houston, Texas when it happened. His story about the man from Windsor. So all of these things you kind of go, and as we started finding problems, people would tell us, well, just put your problems on the shelf and pray about it. But as my son said, he said, Dad, I got so many problems that they're falling off the shelf. The shelf's full. I can't get any more problems on the shelf. The shelf's full. So I was asking questions. I was asking questions of everyone. And finally, and this was in the new church we're at, finally, the pastor said, Rod, could I get together with you for a cup of coffee? I said, sure. He came, he said, Rod, now by this time I had so many doubts and I was really having problems finding answers to them. I actually had told him, I'm leaving. I don't know I'm going to come back. I'm going to take a sabbatical. We're going to go away for a while. I quit. I'd given notice of my job. I told my boss I was retiring. And so told the pastor I'm going to leave and go on a sabbatical, and I'm going to be gone for a couple of months, and I don't know whether I'm going to come back or not. I need to really wrestle with God on this issue. Well, he came to me, and this was a couple of months before I was planning on leaving, and he said, Rod, you're asking too many questions. You're shaking everybody's faith. Why don't you just leave now? Start your sabbatical now. And I said, look, if you want me to leave the church, I don't need. I'm gone. So I left the church then. So I think that was in May 2012. In August of 2012, my son Jeremy, who had founded the Believe the Sign website, called me and said, Dad, we were guilty of promoting false doctrine, and as a result, what we need to do is change the whole approach on the website and tell people we're sorry. And so he wrote an article called Humble Pie, which you can find on the Believe the Sign website. And then after that, we put all of the research that we did rather, on the website, because we thought, why would we force people to have to do this research themselves? If we found it and we said, look, if you can find a problem, if anyone can find a problem with the research we've done, we are more than happy for you to tell us and we'll change it. And we've had a couple of people tell us, but nothing of any significance. So we started that. That happened in August 2012. And it was right after that we put up a video on the municipal bridge vision. And I had some people call me saying, look, we're going to prove you wrong, Rod. We think you're wrong and we're going to prove you wrong. I said, well, please prove me wrong. I don't want to have anything up publicly that is wrong. So I'm responsible to God. So they said, okay, we're going to be back in about 5 months. Now, Voice of God had said, with respect to the municipal bridge vision, that there were no newspaper archives left. They had all been destroyed in the 1937 Ohio River flood. This couple, a married couple, spent 400 hours of their own time because they loved me so much. They wanted to say, Rod, they actually told me later on, we left the 99 and we went after you and your son. We're gonna rescue you. So they spent 400 hours of their own time. They went to the university in Indianapolis. They found all of the archives, newspaper archives, and they researched the municipal bridge vision 100%. They actually found out 2 people had died, neither by drowning. One guy was hit in the head with a crank shaft or crank, and the other guy fell off the bridge, landed on a barge, not in the water, but landed on a barge and, broke every bone in his body and died. And but there were never 16 men killed. And they even went in and researched the logbooks in the life-saving station that was at the foot of the bridge for a period of 10 years and proved that there was no record of anyone dying in the 10 years on either side of the construction of the bridge. So they proved beyond a shadow of a doubt the municipal bridge vision failed. And a month later, they came out of the message. So, it's been really interesting since then, Brother Benjamin, what the Lord has done. Because, I started praying. I said, Lord, what do you want me to do? I've now left the message. I've left my job. What do you want me to do? Is there something you would like me to do for your kingdom? And I was praying for guidance, and I got a call one day from the largest evangelistic organization in Canada. And they said, Rod, would you be interested in coming and work for us as our chief financial officer? I prayed about it. I didn't have any good reasons to say no, and I accepted the job. The day that I went, in fact, the first 5 minutes I was on the job, Brother Benjamin, I went to see the president of this organization because he, it's a $40 million budget, 350 staff. So I was walking down to his office, and he was walking towards me with a man I didn't recognize. He introduced me to this man who was a large donor. And the man looked at me and said, Rod, do you know a man by the name of Peter Dizer? And I said, well, Peter, yeah, I've known Peter for, more than 30 years, 35 years. And for your listeners, Peter Dizer wrote a book called what's the name of his book? The Legend of the Fall, which was about the message. And this man said to me, Peter told me about your wife and yours spiritual struggle 5 years ago. I have been praying for you for the last 5 years. Now, this is a man I've never met before. And he said, your being here at Power to Change is a direct result of my prayer. And I was so humbled by that. Within 2 years, I found myself leading this organization, and I led it for another 6 years. I just retired a year ago in March 2021. So I'd say in closing, Brother Benjamin, I've looked at the message, I've researched it. All of our research is available on the Believe the Sign website. People they don't have to trust me. All of the information is there that they can examine themselves. I have re-examined and re-examined my belief system. I have now rejected everything I knew, and I started from scratch. And I asked myself the question, what has the church always believed? And the thing that I really discovered, Brother Benjamin, is the message was bankrupt of love. Jesus said, this is the way that you're going to know that you're my disciples, if you love one another. And
Exactly.
all you have to do
Exactly.
is start asking questions in the message, and what happens? They,
Yes. Brother Rod, you talked about the Believe the Sign website. So, how many subscribers do you have and also views statistically?
well, we don't have subscribers. Anybody can go on it, they can find it. But I can tell you this, um, probably 5 years ago, we went past the 1 million visitor mark on our website. So we've had a lot of visitors. And videos, we've had, I think in the last time I checked, the last 28 days, we'd had, I think, 22,000 video views on our video channel. So we have a lot of people researching, looking at our videos. We have a lot of people visiting and looking at our website and our podcast too. We've had um, thousands and thousands of people who have downloaded our podcast, which is off the shelf. The podcast, we basically said we put all this stuff on the shelf. Now we're taking it off the shelf. So we have a podcast called Off the Shelf that people are more than happy to listen to.
That's interesting.
So
Now, coming to
go ahead.
the remarks, what last remarks would you give to the people that are still following the message? Do you have any way to
I would say this: God is not afraid of your questions. Um, John says in 1 John chapter 4, there is no fear in love because perfect love casts out all fear. Because fear has to do with punishment. If you are afraid to ask questions because you're afraid God is going to punish you, then you're living in fear and you don't really understand the love that God has for you. The love that God has for you, and if anybody has children, you understand you want what's best for your children. If they got a question, you're going to answer the question. You're not afraid of their questions. But in the message pastors love to load people with fear. And they'll say, well, God is going to punish you. And that is the God of William Branham. The God of William Branham, if you make a mistake, will kill your daughter, will kill your wife. That is not the God of the New Testament. The God of New Testament is a God of love, and we are supposed to be filled with love. Honestly, I never experienced any persecution until I came out of the message. Um, and I'll just quote a passage from First Corinthians chapter 13. This is the way we are supposed to love. Love never gives up. Love cares more for others than for itself. Love doesn't want what it doesn't have. Love doesn't strut. Love doesn't have a swelled head. Love doesn't force itself on others. Love isn't always me first. Love doesn't fly off the handle. Love doesn't keep score of the sins of others. It doesn't revel when others grovel. Love takes pleasure in the flowering of truth. It puts up with anything. It trusts God always. It always looks for the best. It never looks back, but keeps going to the end. That's what love is. And in fact, Paul says in Galatians 5, verse 6, I believe it is, the only thing that counts is faith expressing itself through love. God loves each and every one of your listeners. He wants what's best for them, and He doesn't want to smack them over the head with a stick because they ask a question. God's not afraid of our questions. He wants the best for us.
Hey, that's interesting. Well, viewers, that was Brother Rod Bergen. You can visit his website, Believe the Sign website. You can learn a lot from that website. Brother Rod, it has been a wonderful time with you. Thank you so much. God bless you so much.
It's been my pleasure. God bless you. And God bless all your listeners.
Thank you.